For more than a decade, Apple didn't just sell phones. It shaped how people live, communicate, work, and even how they see themselves. The iPhone became more than a product. It became a habit, a status symbol, a trillion-dollar machine that felt impossible to replace. But quietly, something has shifted. Fewer people are upgrading. The excitement is fading. Prices are rising faster than innovation. And for the first time in years, Apple's most important product no longer feels essential in the way it once did. This isn't the story of Apple collapsing. It's the story of why Apple's old formula is starting to lose its power, and why that matters far more than most people realize. To understand what's happening, you have to understand what Apple really built. Apple didn't win because it made the best phone. Apple won because it built a system that made leaving uncomfortable. Your messages, your photos, your backups, your AirPods, your watch, your Mac. Everything is connected. Over time, Apple stopped being a product choice and became a kind of digital infrastructure, a lifestyle operating system. That's what made Apple nearly untouchable. But that system depends on one fragile assumption, that people will keep upgrading their iPhones regularly. For most of the iPhone era, that assumption held. Every year or two, there was a reason to switch. Better cameras, faster performance, new designs, new features that felt meaningful. Upgrading felt exciting. It felt justified. It felt like progress. Today, that feeling is fading. For many people, their current phone is simply fine. The camera is good enough. The battery is manageable. The speed feels acceptable. The difference between this year's iPhone and last year's doesn't feel life-changing anymore. That small emotional shift is dangerous, because Apple's business model was built on the idea that you want the next one, not that you merely tolerate the one you already have. When excitement turns into indifference, even the strongest brand begins to feel pressure. The iPhone is not just another product for Apple, it is the economic engine of the entire company. It funds research, it supports services, it drives ecosystem growth, it powers Apple's valuation. For years, the iPhone didn't just sell well, it carried the entire structure on its back. But every technology matures. We've seen this pattern before. PCs, televisions, laptops. Once a category matures, replacement cycles stretch. Innovation slows. Growth becomes harder to sustain. The smartphone market is now in that phase. Apple didn't fail. The market changed. That puts Apple in a position it hasn't faced in years. How do you grow when your core product no longer creates natural urgency? Apple's first response was simple: raise prices. Over time, $1,000 phones became normal. Then higher storage tiers pushed prices even further. At the same time, the real world became more expensive. Rent rose, food prices climbed, interest rates stayed high, credit card balances grew. For many consumers, upgrading a phone stopped feeling like an exciting decision and started feeling like a financial one. That shift matters. Apple built its dominance on emotional upgrades, on desire, on the feeling that you were missing out if you didn't have the latest device. When that emotion fades, Apple is forced to sell premium products into a more cautious, price-sensitive world. That's a difficult environment for any premium brand. So Apple tried to change the story, from devices to services. Apple Music, Apple TV+, iCloud, subscriptions, the App Store. Services revenue looks strong on paper. It provides more stable income. It smooths out hardware cycles. It gives investors something to point to when device growth slows. But services do not exist independently of the iPhone. More iPhones mean more service users. Fewer upgrades eventually mean slower service growth too. Services help. They matter, but they do not replace the emotional and economic power of a growing hardware platform. And now, Apple's services business is facing pressure from another direction: regulators. For years, Apple controlled its ecosystem with near total authority. The App Store, in-app payments, developer fees, Apple's famous 30% cut. That control was enormously profitable. But governments started asking hard questions. In Europe, new regulations forced Apple to open its platform. Alternative app stores, alternative payment systems, more competition inside Apple's walled garden. What used to be Apple's strongest advantage, control, is slowly becoming a liability. And once that precedent exists, it doesn't stay in one region forever. The pressure spreads, the rules change, the business model becomes less predictable. At the same time, Apple is facing a new technological race that could define the next decade. Artificial intelligence, Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, Amazon. These companies are building massive cloud-based AI platforms. They are investing billions into data centers, models, and infrastructure. Apple, by contrast, has always focused on privacy and on-device computing. That gives Apple trust. It gives Apple a strong brand identity. But it also creates structural disadvantages in a world where AI increasingly depends on massive cloud scale and centralized computing power. Apple now faces a difficult choice. Does it fully embrace cloud-based AI and change its philosophy, or does it try to build a privacy-first AI platform that may lag behind competitors in raw capability? The Vision Pro shows Apple's ambition. It's impressive technology, it's powerful engineering, but it's also expensive, bulky, and niche. It is not an iPhone scale platform. It does not reshape daily behavior for hundreds of millions of people. And that's the real issue. Apple doesn't just need better features. It doesn't just need faster chips. It doesn't just need smarter cameras. Apple needs its next platform, its next behavioral shift, its next moment that changes how people live. Because Apple has reinvented itself before, from computers to music to smartphones. Each time it created a new center of gravity, a new reason for people to stay inside its ecosystem. The question now is whether Apple can do it one more time before the iPhone era slowly fades into maturity. Because the real risk isn't Apple failing overnight. The real risk is Apple becoming comfortable, still profitable, still powerful, still admired, but no longer defining the future the way it once did. Apple is not dying, but the era of easy automatic iPhone-driven growth is over. What comes next will determine whether Apple remains a company that shapes the world, or becomes one that simply serves it. Do you think Apple will create another platform as powerful as the iPhone? Or are we entering a quieter Apple era? If you want more deep dives into what's really happening inside the world's most powerful companies, make sure you're subscribed, because this story is far from over. And this shift inside Apple may be a preview of what's coming for the entire consumer technology industry. As devices become more mature, the companies that once thrived on constant upgrades will have to find new ways to create real reasons for people to change their behavior again. That pressure is already reshaping how products are designed, how ecosystems are built, and how power is distributed across the tech world. Apple is simply the clearest example of a much larger transition that's now underway. The next few years will show whether Apple leads that transition or is forced to follow it.